Your visa is approved, you have your ticket, you are for sure going to the United States of America. But before you do that, there are a lot of things that you need to prepare for before your flight. This is the video for you. I have a long list of things that you need to prepare for before you step on that plane and move to the next chapter of your life in the US. Welcome to Clueless in the US. My name is Mighty, and my goal in this channel is to help you move, survive, and thrive in the United States. So if you want to have a PDF copy, let me know and I can prepare that. Just comment in the comment section below. The very first thing that you need to do is to estimate the time that you have left before your flight to the USA. And so it's really helpful to come up with a checklist so that as you do those things, you're able to do like, okay, this is done, this is done, this is done, and I still need to do this. In general, people would have anywhere between 1 month to 3 months, maybe 6 months would be too long, right? So for that amount of time, you know how urgent you need to, how fast you need to move in order to prepare for your flight. So you need to check with your US employer what they are providing. And this means, do they have a relocation assistance for you? How much is that going to be? Are they taking care of your airfare? Will they be providing you a car right when you arrive? Do they have a hotel for you when you arrive in the US? Where will you stay? So what about housing and transportation? Will they provide that for you, or do you need to take care of those things? Having a clear set of expectations before you arrive in the US is key so that when you arrive in the US, you're ready to go. Secondly, if you are currently working in your country of origin, in my case, I was in the Philippines back then, and my wife and I were working there. And so you may need to resign from your jobs. Some jobs require you to give 30 days notice, and some would just require 2 weeks. And so your spouse would also need to resign, and any other family member who is currently working. In the case of my wife, she used to work in a big TV station in the Philippines, and 2 months before our move, she resigned, and so we focused on the things that we needed to do before moving to the US. This next tip is one of the hardest things to do, right? Because we are excited to move to a new country, to the US in particular, and so we need to start saying goodbye to family and friends. It's not easy. And especially if your family is tight-knit, it might be years before you see each other again. Like in our case, it took us like 6 years until we were able to go back to the Philippines and have vacation and spend time with family. You will miss family and friends. I don't know your situation. Maybe you have some family in the US and so the move is not that difficult. But if you have a tight-knit family, just like my wife and her siblings and their big family, it's hard. It's really tough. So in the Philippines, we have this tradition called the despedida party. I think that comes from Spanish despedida. And so you are being sent off by friends and family. And sometimes, you meet with family and friends for dinner, for lunch, or whatever. And so you eat a lot. So you just got to be careful not to gain too many pounds before moving. So you also need to learn how to drive, and you need a driver's license from your country of origin. Here in the US, it's very difficult to survive without a car. And so if you have an expressway and a big highway in your country, practice doing that. Practice following the rules. You need to have your seatbelt at all times. You need to follow the traffic rules. In the Philippines, where I grew up and where I moved from, sometimes the rules are not like as hard compared here, but we got to be aware of all those rules. And at the same time, the driver's license from the Philippines, I was able to use that for around 30 days. Well, actually, maximum of 90 days in some states. And so as long as that driver's license has an English translation or it's in English. And before we moved, that's what my wife did as well. She learned how to drive, and to gain a little bit more confidence, she started driving in the streets of Manila. And if you can drive in the streets of Manila, man, it's quite easy to drive in the streets of the US. Well, again, depending on where you are in terms of the city and the state you will live in the US. Also, download Uber or Lyft in your phone so that you have a way to move around in the US once you arrive. One of the things that you need though is to have a credit card that will be connected through Uber or Lyft, because that's the way to pay for those apps. Only the major cities usually have a big transportation system, like New York, Atlanta, I think Los Angeles as well. But smaller cities, especially if you go to the rural areas, they would not have an extensive bus or train system, so you will definitely need a car. But once you have Uber or Lyft, at least you can hail them, you can use them, and you can move from one place to another. And also, another option is for you to rent a car. And how to do that, I have a video, and I'm going to link that here in the screen or in the comment section below. You also need to make sure that you have money for the first 2 to 4 weeks in the US before you receive your first salary if you are moving for work. And so it's really important to ask your US employer what they will provide. And also, it's a good idea to have about $1,000 to $2,000 per person in order to make sure that you have everything you need, because you will need food, you will need to buy some of the necessities that you have, and I think in general $1,000 $2,000 for 2 weeks would be enough per person. It is quite expensive to live here in the US. One time I bought a Coke in a vending machine and it was $2. In the Philippines, that's 100 pesos. And man, it was difficult to drink that Coke. So another tip for you, do not convert back to your home country's currency. Next up, find relevant social media pages to connect with people in your community in the US. So that usually Facebook is the easiest one to use. There are a lot of groups, say for example for Filipinos in Texas, for Filipino nurses in a specific state, for whatever nationality you have. You can find those communities online and connect with them. Ask questions about things that you need to prepare for, especially anything specific to the city and the profession that you are moving to here in the US. It's also a good idea to apply for permits, papers, and documents that you will need. And in the case of Filipinos moving to the US, it's handy to have the following documents: your birth certificate, your marriage certificate, transcript of records from your university, any government mandated certificates, like we have what we call the overseas employment certificate, which helps you as an overseas Filipino worker. And also, when you apply for some documents here in the US, having those things are handy. Like proving that you are married to each other. And sometimes if you have kids and they are born in the US, having the marriage certificate will also be helpful in order to establish your relationship and the child's relationship with you. And so, again, research some of the documents that you will need and authenticate them with your Department of Foreign Affairs as needed. You also need to get rid of your stuff. The sad thing about moving from one country to another is that you need to let go of so many things that you possess. In our case, I had a lot of books. We had a lot of clothes, some furniture, some refrigerators, and so we all needed to let go of those things. So we sold some of my favorite books. Like, I'm a big sci-fi reader back in the day, so I had a whole set of Isaac Asimov books that I had to entrust to a friend of mine and say, hey, these are yours now and take care of it. And the thing is, you need to fit your things into 2 suitcases or boxes per person. That's generally the maximum that you can carry. So if you are a family moving, in our case, there were three of us, me, my wife, and then we only had one son back then. So we had six pieces of luggage and boxes among us. So let me tell you, it was barely enough. It's like starting all over again. But the good news is, once you arrive in the US, it's so easy to buy stuff. It's so easy to accumulate, and before long, your apartment will be filled. So don't worry about it. It's just part of the start of starting a new life when you move to the US. If there are some things that will not fit into your luggage or boxes, then find a place to leave them behind. Usually, if your parents are still alive or they have a house, a brother or a sister that you can entrust those things or documents, make sure that those are trusted people, especially if it involves titles of property that you own or title of your house. Then make sure that you have a place to store them and leave them. You also need to prepare all your important travel documents, so your passport, your visa or visa packet, and your driver's license. Usually in a carry-on bag like a backpack or like a fanny pack, you can put all of those things there so that when you arrive and the immigration officer is going to interview you, you know where to pick those things up, and it's easy, less stress, and you will be on your way before you know it. I know this might be a little early for you to think about or to plan about, but even when you are starting your journey to the US, you got to start planning for your finances. How much are you going to be making? How much will your salary be? And how much will your monthly expenses be? Like I said, it's quite expensive to live here in the US. And so, depending on the state and the city where you will be moving to, expect to spend around 2,500 to 5,000 US dollars monthly. And there's an online resource you can check to know how much your budget is going to be in major cities in the US. Like, I'm putting that in the screen, and I've also created a video that will help you estimate your monthly expenses in the US. And here's the thing, and I wish I did this sooner, right when we arrive and I received my paycheck. Start saving money right away. There are a lot of investment opportunities here in the US, but we could talk about those in another video. Get to know the city you're moving to. Like, what are the tourist spots that you can go to? What are the school for kids? Where will they attend? Church or mosque, if that's important to you. Where can you find the Asian market, the Filipino grocery store? Because if you're craving for food like pinakbet, sisig, or lechon, or barbecue, things that we love from our home country, we need those, right? In this case, Google Maps is your friend. And so even before you move, just go to Google Maps and search for those things that you anticipate you will be going to. You also need to know the weather in your destination city. Is it going to be hot? Is it going to be cold or just right? If you are moving to the southern part of the United States, like Florida, Georgia, New Mexico, Texas, most of the time it's gonna be hot. Like, I'm here in the San Antonio area, it can get hot. And the winter, it's not too bad. But if you go to the Midwest or the northern part of the US, the closer you move to Canada, it's gonna be cold. Like, seriously cold, like below freezing cold. And so that will impact the types of clothes that you are going to bring with you. I mean, we did not have winter in the Philippines. We did not have places to buy clothes for winter except in the secondhand stores. We call them ukay-ukay, right? Well, again, the good thing is when you arrive in the US, there's a lot of thrift stores where you can go and buy those winter clothes. So, not to worry about those, but it helps to know what to expect. If you're going to a wintry state or wintry city like Chicago, man, the first time that you see snow, it's gonna be fun. especially if you have kids. It will be fun. But after that first fun, it's not very fun if you have to deal with it every winter. Like, tell me about it, All right, once you have those things settled down, you gotta plan for your air travel. Plan for at least 3 hours of layover for your first stop in the United States. You can, your first point of entry, whether that is in LA, in New York City, in Atlanta, or in any other city in the US. The very first time that you enter the US, you will need to go through immigration. They will ask you about your visa, where are you going in the US, where are you staying, and what are you going to be doing here in the US. So you need to prepare for that. Plan for at least 3 hours because the immigration lines can be long. Right? It can be long. And it doesn't matter if you have kids or if you're a senior citizen. Sometimes they all lump you in one big long line. So in our case, because back then we had a toddler. Our eldest was then 2 years old. So after the long line and after the interview with the immigration officer, well, guess what? Our son needed to go to the bathroom, like real bad. And so we went through there, we picked up our luggage from the baggage counter, we checked them in for the domestic flight going to Nashville in Tennessee because that was our destination then. And then we had to line up again to the security, and then we had to run to our airport, to our gate. We missed our flight. And especially for those of you who are parents of young kids, prepare to move fast or as fast as you can with your kids. And so, but that's part of our adventure. And it's exciting. It's been 8 years since we moved here. And as a family, we have grown. We have enjoyed our time here. And don't forget to like and subscribe. If I missed any tips, if you have any questions at all about moving here to the US, then leave them in the comment section below and I will answer as soon as I can.